It was a beautiful summer's day, and I was walking along the countryside to unwind from a hard week's work. I was never down this road, and the reason is because I took a break from work for a week in as backward a place as I could get in the middle of Texas. This was my first day here, and I must admit the scenery is beautiful. I came across a farm, and suddenly, breaking the peaceful tranquility of the countryside atmosphere, I heard a screech. I wondered what could it have been, so I investigated. I walked behind the barn and could see, way down a hill, a man with a huge knife, and it looked like he was about to cut the other man's head off. I felt goosebumps crawl all over my body, and I just froze, afraid I'd let them know I was here, and he would definitely kill me also for witnessing it. I hid behind the barn, then took another peek down the hill to see were they still there. Then I ran as fast as I could. About an hour later, I found a local police station and explained it to the sheriff. He said he would drive out there right away, and he took my number and he said he would keep me updated. The weird thing was, the sheriff told me he went down to the place I mentioned, but there was no barn and no farm, but just overgrown fields. I couldn't understand what was happening and pleaded with him to drive me down to where I saw it. I was dumbfounded when we got there, as it was just how the sheriff said. There was no barn, but just overgrown fields. The sheriff asked me, was I on something, or had I the wrong place? But I knew I hadn't the wrong place. The question was, how and why was it so different? I went back to my motel a few hours later and lied on my bed pondering what was wrong. I tried to come up with some explanation but failed miserably. I got up and switched on the TV, and suddenly numbers popped up on the screen. 120-618-19. I wondered what they popped up for, and had a strange feeling to write them down. I tried to get some sleep then, but was woken by a sound outside the motel. There was an envelope down on the ground. I picked it up, wondering what it was. Wondering was it for me? There was a receipt for a knife. I thought it very strange, and wondered, was someone playing some kind of sick trick on me? But then my eyes caught something very, very strange. On the paper, I saw the receipt's order number. Looked very familiar. So I took out the piece of paper I had wrote the numbers on that were written on the TV. Sure enough, the numbers matched the receipt's order number, which was 120-618-19. I then thought, maybe the motel had their own way of putting an order number on the TV. But I hadn't ordered anything. My curiosity was growing, and suddenly I had an idea. What if I searched those numbers online? I got out my laptop and searched them, and my jaw dropped and my heart thumped in my chest when I saw what I saw. On the 12th of the 6th, in 1819, there was an execution taking place on this exact date. Today was the 12th of the 6th, 2019, exactly 200 years after that date. I suddenly realized the significance of the numbers. I looked at the photo and saw the two men that I just saw earlier. I felt shivers run up my spine as I tried to fathom, how did I become a witness to an execution that happened 200 years ago? Unless for the unbelievable idea that I must have somehow travelled through a time warp to travel back 200 years to witness it. I couldn't understand what was happening. I jumped when suddenly I heard a knock on the door. I answered it, and what I saw, I would never, ever forget. It was the man who was killing the other man in the field, standing right before me. He raised his knife and was about to kill me when suddenly he disappeared. I told a few people, but they wouldn't believe me. I am very afraid that someday the man will come back to kill me, maybe because I witnessed the execution 200 years ago. But as I said, no one would believe me, but the fear is rooted deep in me, and I regret ever coming to this God-forsaken town. I love shopping. You might love shopping also. But what would you do if your shopping experience turned into a nightmare? I have a true story that was just that. It happened in a town in California called Oxnard. The town has a population of just over 200,000 people, and even though this town is the home of this horror story, it was ironically voted one of the safest cities in the United States of America back in 2013. The crime level is low and the income level is high. To add to that, it is a beautiful looking town. But no matter what town you go to, there are always places you'd want to watch out. There are good and bad people everywhere, I suppose. Back to what I told you at the start of this story, shopping. This particular shopping experience I am about to tell you about is far from your typical enjoyable experience. This is an account of a shopper at a huge mall, which is the mecca of American consumerism. The place to everyone go to get basically anything they desire, whether it be a book, clothes, food, or a toy. Toys will feature heavy in this story. Bear in mind, this particular store is meant to be haunted, but also bear in mind that not every store is haunted, of course. The ghost that people talk about in this store is of a little girl of Mexican-American descent. She is said to like to play in the toy aisle. There is nothing strange about that. What kid doesn't? But what is strange is she is a ghost. Employees and patrons have seen her roam around in the girls' toys section, but sometimes she can be seen playing with the trucks as well. She doesn't come across as sinister or dangerous to people who spot her. She is meant to usually greet them with a ghoulish smile. Why people say ghoulish is because her eyes are milk white, but her entire body is covered in blood. One customer said the first time they saw her, they just about died and went up to Jesus. They thought it was some kid who had hurt themselves. When the person saw the girl disappear in front of her very eyes, she knew she was a ghost. But the girl never talks. Some people believe that the girl was murdered years and years ago in the field where the huge mall now stands. That is a rumour which was made in the circle of people that came across the girl. Whether it is true or not, they don't know. The people who see the girl are often greeted by her smile. One person who has seen the girl said it stands to reason that if she has been haunting that area for all these years, forever trapped in the spirit and mentality of a little girl, she would find the sudden appearance of a bunch of toys around her to be a golden opportunity. As horrific as this story is, no one has exactly any cause to fear the ghost. The main reason for people being so disturbed is the sheer volume of blood on her is enough to freak people out. A former employee has said, "We just let her be mostly. She doesn't hurt anyone, at least so far, and there's really not much we could do about her if we wanted to." It's sad, you know, that little girl playing all alone in there in the toys with no friends or family to be with her. So yeah, we just let her be, and we hope that she never decides that she doesn't like us anymore. I used to love going to my local cinema, but I was so upset when I learned it was closing down. Just a few days before the closing date, I was so happy to learn that because of such high numbers of people going to the cinema, it decided to stay open. I was a very loyal customer, so one day I received a scroll like the Roman times, and written on it was, "We are happy to announce to you that you, being a loyal customer, we invite you to a showing of a very special movie. Please note that you are only permitted and no other person. Enjoy the movie." I was so excited. A few weeks ago I thought the cinema was closing. Now it's thriving, and there's queues out the door. On top of that, I just got an invitation to a really cool movie. I didn't know what it was a secret until it showed, but I felt really appreciated being given the invitation. The movie was on Halloween night. I had planned to go to a party, but I no way could pass up on this offer. I arrived at the cinema at 7:30 on Halloween night, expecting a huge queue as always. But I was very surprised when there was no one in the queue, just one security man on the door who asked to see my invitation, and a girl inside at the box office. She smiled at me and said, "Good evening, sir. May I see your invitation?" I showed her the scroll, and she gestured with her hand towards screen 1 and said, "Screen 1, sir, enjoy the movie." I thanked her and excitedly went into the cinema. I looked around, and to my astonishment, there was no one else in the cinema, just empty seats. The last few weeks, there wasn't an empty seat in the place. I wondered should I go out to buy some popcorn, but just relaxed in my seat first. The door opened and another person came in. I don't know why, but I felt strange being in the cinema alone with this guy. There was some kind of strange negative energy of him. He walked up to the front seat of the cinema. I was down the back. The lights went off and a message appeared on the screen. It read, "We have invited you to this very special movie to show our appreciation for your help in helping this cinema thrive." All of a sudden, the guy ran up to me and I got such a fright, but it was just me being paranoid as he was just putting something in the bin behind me. Then he walked back to the front and sat down again. The title of the movie appeared on the screen. It read Locked In. I've never heard of this movie before and wondered what was it about. Suddenly the guy got up again and ran back, but luckily he passed me. I was relieved, until I realised he was standing by the door. I wondered what was he doing. Maybe he just didn't want to miss the start of the movie and was going to buy some popcorn. But then fear rose up inside me and my heart pounded in my chest. I could hear the thumping in my ears. He put a lock on the door, locking it. I thought of the name of the movie, Locked In. I didn't know what else to say but ask him what was going on. He looked at me with an evil, sinister stare. Relax. You were one of the main reasons this cinema is thriving now. I didn't understand until the movie started playing. It was the owner of the cinema on the screen. It was all beginning to get scarier and scarier. He started to speak. Welcome to the cinema, my good friend. Just a few short weeks ago, we were to close down because we weren't getting enough business. As you can see, the last few weeks we are thriving, and that is down to one thing. I practice black magic, you see. I had an amazing chance at saving this cinema, so I welcomed it with open arms. I made a pact with the devil. All he asked was one sacrifice of a very, very loyal customer every Halloween. And as long as I do this, well then, this cinema will have a roaring trade. I couldn't believe what I was seeing and hearing. The man behind me got out a huge knife and shouted, "Hail Satan!" I ran down to the fire exit, hoping it would be open, and thankfully it was. I ran straight to the police station and told them everything, but they didn't believe me, and I worry what will happen next Halloween. I haven't and wouldn't darken the door of that cinema ever again.